September 2014. The Adirondack High Peaks, 6 million acres of jagged ridges, dense canopy, and rivers that cut through stone like scars. To hikers, it was both sanctuary and challenge. To Rhonda and Trevor Caring, it was a place they knew better than most. But that September, mother and son stepped into the forest and never came out. 2 years later, their case was still a void. 2 faint traces remained. A strange 4-second call placed from their satellite phone at 2:17 a.m., and a smashed truck window smeared with blood. Everything else had been swallowed by the wilderness. Until, years later, a hunter's dog stopped in its tracks and began to dig. In his modest home in upstate New York, Gareth Caring woke to stiffness in his knee, the one that had kept him from joining this hike. He limped through the kitchen, poured his coffee, and noticed the blinking light on the satellite phone base station. He frowned. That blinking meant activity overnight. He scrolled through the log. 2:17 a.m. Incoming call. Duration, 4 seconds. The number belonged to the handheld unit Rhonda and Trevor carried. For seconds. Too short for a word. Too short for a scream. Just enough for the system to register before silence. Gareth dialed back. The line didn't even ring. A cold prompt appeared. Handset not reachable. He tried again. Same result. He told himself it was an accidental button press. But the thought landed wrong. Neither Rhonda nor Trevor made mistakes with equipment. Not out there. Not ever. The hours crawled. He tried distracting himself with chores, but his eyes kept flicking back to the base station. Nothing. By mid-afternoon, they should have been home. By early evening, panic chewed through his rationalizations. He dialed again. Nothing. The wilderness that had always been their joy now pressed against him like a threat. He phoned the state police. At first, it was an inquiry. My wife and son are overdue. But when the night deepened, his call became a report. My family is missing. At dawn, the forest changed. It was no longer a place of leisure. It was now the epicenter of a massive emergency response. Forest rangers arrived, setting up a mobile command post at the trailhead. Radios snapped with static. Maps spread across hoods of trucks. Helicopters were readied. Gareth, pale and limping, gave every detail he knew. Planned loop route. Olive green jacket for Rhonda. Bright turquoise for Trevor. Their specialized packs, their boots, their food supply. He repeated the colors again and again, as if repeating them might conjure his family back. By late morning, a ranger reported, vehicle located. Relief at first, then dread. The truck sat near the trailhead, but its passenger side window had been shattered inward. Glass lay scattered like crushed ice. The glove box dangled open, its contents dumped. Maps, batteries, a first aid kit. Worse, there were smears of blood across the broken glass and dashboard. The search had just crossed from rescue into investigation. Technicians swabbed the stains, dusted for prints. A trooper muttered, could be a break-in. Happens at remote trailheads. But the blood was fresh. Too fresh. Had Rhonda and Trevor interrupted a thief? Or had someone been waiting for them? The towering pines whispered in the wind. Indifferent. And the first layer of fear settled in. This was no ordinary disappearance. The search fanned out. Rangers trudged into dense undergrowth, calling the hikers names, voices swallowed by trees. Helicopters with infrared sensors circled, scanning for heat signatures among ravines and streams. But the Adirondacks aren't hills, they're a labyrinth. Weather shifted hourly, clouds collapsing into fog, rain slicking mossy rock. Even experts risked injury with each step. Every hour that passed without a trace pressed harder against hope. Back at the command post, Gareth hovered, watching strangers coordinate the search for his family. His knee ached, but it was nothing compared to the hollow ache inside his chest. The 2:17 a.m. call replayed in his mind over and over. He didn't hear 4 seconds of silence. He heard a scream cut short. Search experts know the window. If lost hikers aren't found within 72 hours, chances plummet. By day 3, no footprints, no campsite, no dropped gear had appeared. The smashed truck window complicated everything. If foul play occurred at the trailhead, maybe they never even started the hike. Or worse, maybe someone had followed them in. But then why was there so little? No tire tracks, no witnesses, no other vehicles logged. Just a wilderness the size of a small country, and 2 people gone inside it. Lab results came back. The blood on the glass belonged to an unknown male. Not Rhonda, not Trevor. Authorities entered the profile into Cody's, the national DNA database. No match. It meant the perpetrator, if that's what he was, wasn't in the system. A ghost with blood in the truck and no name. By the end of the week, fatigue etched every face at the command center. Helicopters burned fuel. Volunteers blistered feet. The wilderness remained mute. For Gareth, silence was the worst evidence of all. He would rather have found a shred of clothing, a broken bootlace, anything, than this endless nothing. The only sound he couldn't escape was that call. For seconds, 2:17 a.m., it had become less a clue than a curse. The Adirondacks at dawn were supposed to be serene. Mist clung to the trees, birds called in the distance, and streams trickled unseen beneath moss. But on that September morning, serenity was gone. The forest had become a battlefield between human determination and a vast, indifferent wilderness. By first light, rangers and state police gathered at the trailhead. They unfurled topographical maps, marked possible campsites, and drew circles where streams cut through ravines. Helicopters thumped overhead, their blades scattering pine needles into the dirt lot. For the locals, it was surreal. The high peaks had swallowed people before. Hikers who twisted ankles, wandered off trail, or underestimated the weather. But this was different. The mother and son weren't amateurs. They weren't careless. They had disappeared in silence, leaving nothing but a shattered truck window and a 4-second call. The search had barely begun, and already it was weighted with dread. The caring family truck was cordoned off with yellow tape. Investigators in latex gloves moved carefully around it. The blood on the window glistened against the glass fragments, dark and sticky. Technicians swabbed it, stored it, logged it. The glove compartment hung open like a torn mouth, papers and batteries strewn across the seats. Theories clashed in the dirt lot. Some believed it was a simple robbery, a thief looking for valuables. But others pointed to the timing. The vehicle was parked just yesterday. The window was fresh, the glass still sharp. And that blood, why so much blood for a quick smash and grab? One ranger muttered the thought none of them wanted to voice. What if they never even made it into the woods? Despite the crime scene, the search pressed forward. Teams of 2 and 3 headed into the tree line. They called Rhonda's name, Trevor's. The wind carried their voices, scattering them across valleys. The terrain punished them. Slopes forced hands and knees. Wet moss turned every step into a gamble. Branches clawed at jackets. Dogs were brought in, German shepherds trained to follow human scent. But the dogs pulled in circles, confused by wind shifts and dense forest. Every trail went cold after a few hundred yards. Helicopters swept low, their infrared sensors searching for heat. But the canopy was too thick. Beneath it, the forest floor remained hidden, a world the machines couldn't see. At the command post, Gareth stood like a shadow. He couldn't hike the steep terrain anymore. His knee made sure of that, but he remained, answering questions, repeating details. Olive green jacket for Rhonda. Turquoise for Trevor. They'd have their trekking poles. Their boots are Vask, thick soles. They always carry water filters, never bottles. He gave details until his throat was raw. But between questions, his mind circled back to the base station. To the log. To the words. 2:17 a.m., 4 seconds. He couldn't stop replaying it. He imagined Rhonda fumbling with the handset in the dark. He imagined Trevor shouting into it. He imagined a scream drowned in static. For seconds. Long enough to mean something. Too short to prove anything. Within 48 hours, the blood samples were rushed to the lab. DNA extraction, sequencing, cross-checking against the National Cody's database. The result returned fast, and it chilled investigators. It was male. Not Rhonda. Not Trevor. Not Gareth. An unknown profile, and no match in Cody's. Whoever bled into that truck had no criminal record in the system. He was a ghost. Theories shifted again. If it was a thief, he wasn't on record. If it was an attacker, he'd left behind nothing but a smear of himself. Search experts call it the golden window. 72 hours before exposure, injury, and dehydration collapse survival odds. By the end of day 3, there was nothing. No footprints, no fire pits, no scraps of gear, not even disturbed underbrush. Helicopters returned with empty sweeps. Volunteers returned with blistered feet. Dogs whined, confused. The Adirondacks swallowed every attempt whole. One ranger summarized it in a whisper at the camp. It's like they vanished between one step and the next. The smashed truck fractured the investigation. If the hikers had been attacked before stepping into the forest, the entire search grid was misaligned. But if they had vanished deeper in, the break-in might be unrelated. Every hour spent chasing the wrong lead meant survival odds slipped further away. Rangers argued quietly at maps, shifting markers, redrawing routes. Meanwhile, Gareth sat alone on a folding chair by the command post, watching the forest. To him, the forest no longer looked like sanctuary. It looked like a mouth that had swallowed his family. By week's end, the search expanded. Specialized units were brought in, rope teams for steep cliffs, divers for lakes and streams, trackers with decades of experience. They scoured ravines where hikers had fallen before. They searched lean-tos where lost travelers sometimes sheltered. They followed game trails, thinking perhaps the hikers had followed deer paths. Every lead ended the same, empty forest. Thermal scanners from the air showed nothing but cold canopy. Dogs circled without direction. At night, the command post dimmed. Radios quieted, and silence pressed in. By day 10, the case was collapsing under the weight of nothing. The media arrived, cameras pointed at Gareth. Questions stabbed. Do you believe they're still alive? What do you think happened? Do you think foul play was involved? He answered carefully, but his voice cracked. I don't know, but I know my wife. She would have used that satellite phone if she could. That call wasn't an accident. It was her trying to tell me something. The words rippled across newspapers, across television, across forums. The 4-second call became the spine of speculation. By late October, the Adirondacks shifted. Leaves dropped. Cold sharpened. Snow crept down from higher peaks. Searchers fought frost on their tents, ice in their boots. Helicopters flew less, grounded by storms. The probability curve bent downward. Survival became impossible. By November, the official search was suspended. Rangers were pulled back. Only volunteers kept going, drawn by obsession or grief. For Gareth, the silence was unbearable. Every night, he stared at the base station, as if daring it to blink again. It never did. The truck was impounded, its blood samples preserved. The search logs filled binders. Interviews with hikers, locals, anyone who might have seen something, all filed away. But no new evidence surfaced. No new calls. No footprints in snow. Winter sealed the case in silence. The Adirondacks swallowed another mystery. By December 2014, the Adirondacks lay buried under snow. The peaks wore white crowns. Rivers froze in jagged ribbons, and the forest floor hardened into ice. The official search was over. Helicopters no longer swept overhead. Rangers no longer called Rhonda and Trevor's names into the trees. The mobile command post was dismantled. The parking lot where their truck had been found returned to silence. But silence does not mean peace. For Gareth Caring, silence was a punishment. At home, the base station sat on a shelf, its light dark, its log frozen in time. 2:17 a.m. 4 seconds. Gareth stared at it every day. Sometimes he picked up the receiver and dialed the handheld unit, even though he knew it was pointless. Each time, the same response. Unit unreachable. The house had become a museum of absence. Rhonda's hiking boots still by the door. Trevor's jacket still draped over a chair. Coffee mugs they'd last used, now untouched. At night, the silence pressed in so heavy it felt like the walls were closing. The media refused to let the story die quickly. Some newspapers suggested it was a tragic accident, a slip on wet rock, a fall into a ravine, hypothermia. Others leaned into darker ideas. They had interrupted a thief at the trailhead. They had been followed into the woods. The blood in the truck proved foul play. But each theory had holes. If it was an accident, where were the bodies? If it was foul play, why no trace beyond a window and blood? Talk shows debated it. Online forums dissected it. And still, there were no answers. The DNA from the truck window had become the most tangible lead. But weeks turned to months, and no match appeared in Cody's. Whoever the man was, he wasn't in the system. Investigators checked local hospitals for recent injuries, thinking someone might have come in with cuts from breaking glass. Nothing. They canvassed pawn shops in case stolen gear turned up. Nothing. The blood belonged to someone real, someone alive. But in the case file, he remained a phantom. Through it all, Gareth's voice never wavered on one point. The call was not an accident, he told anyone who would listen. It was her. It was them. Trying to reach me. Something happened at 2:17. That call was their last chance. Detectives heard him, but with no proof it remained speculation. A haunting detail, not hard evidence. Still, Gareth clung to it. It was the thread he refused to let go. As the first anniversary approached, Rhonda and Trevor's disappearance became a story retold more often in whispers than headlines. Campers told it around fire rings. Did you hear about the mother and son who vanished? Locals told it as a cautionary tale. Don't go too deep in the high peaks. They never found them. But for Gareth, it wasn't a story. It was daily life. Each morning he woke up to an empty house. Each night he stared at the base station. Time blurred, but the ache remained sharp. By 2015, other tragedies filled the news cycle. Other disappearances, other crimes. The Caring case slipped lower in the stack. Even the authorities stopped calling with updates. Detectives rotated. Rangers took on new assignments. The Adirondacks reclaimed the memory. Leaves grew back. Rivers thawed. Trails filled with new hikers, unaware of the ghosts they walked over. For most, it became just another unsolved case. But for Gareth, every day was still September 15, 2014. 2 full years passed. The wilderness cycled through seasons, erasing signs of human passage. Snow buried the ground, melted into streams, fed new growth. Whatever traces Rhonda and Trevor had left were consumed by the forest. Their names became shorthand in hiker forums. The Carings. Remember them. Theories shifted again. Some swore it was a bear attack. Others whispered about reclusive loners in the woods. A few insisted it had to be a robbery gone wrong. But no one knew. The only certainty was absence. October 2016. The air was crisp, carrying the earthy scent of decay. Leaves littered the ground in shades of gold and brown. In a remote section of forest, far from any marked trail, a man named Jasper Polk moved quietly with his hunting dog. He was after coyotes, an elusive pursuit that demanded silence and patience. Jasper knew these woods like the back of his hand. But even he avoided certain areas, steep ravines, dense understories where sunlight never reached. Places where you could lose your sense of direction in minutes. It was in one of those places, beneath a moss-covered log, that his dog stopped. The animal stiffened, nose pressed to the earth, whining and digging. Jasper expected a den, a fox, coyote. What he unearthed instead was something else entirely. Beneath the log, his gloved hands scraped against something hard. Not a root, not a stone, metal. He pulled. The soil resisted. He dug deeper, pried it free. It was a rusted pan. Corroded, jagged, broken at the edges. At first glance, it looked like discarded gear, left behind years ago. But when Jasper turned it over in his hands, he froze. The surface wasn't weathered by time. It was perforated. Small, tight holes clustered together. Raised edges on the inside. Not rust. Not wear. Bullet holes. Buckshot. October 2016. The forest was different now. The bright greens of summer had faded, replaced by muted browns, oranges, and yellows carpeting the forest floor. A stillness lingered in the air, the kind of silence that comes before winter clamps down. Jasper Polk moved quietly, rifle slung across his back, boots crunching over damp leaves. His hunting dog padded ahead, nose low to the ground. Jasper wasn't a weekend hiker. He was a tracker, born and raised near these woods. A man who knew how to read the forest's moods the way others read a newspaper. He wasn't thinking of the caring disappearance that morning. That story, though known to locals, had become a fading echo. Jasper was focused on coyotes, elusive prey that required patience and silence. But the forest had other plans. As Jasper crested a ridge, his dog stopped dead. Its ears pricked forward, hackles rising. Then it began to dig furiously at the base of a massive fallen log, its paws throwing dirt and leaves into the air. At first, Jasper assumed the dog had scented a den, fox, rabbit, or coyote. But the dog's behavior shifted from curiosity to agitation. It whined, growled, then barked sharply, pawing harder at the earth. Jasper approached, kneeling down. He brushed aside soil and moss with his gloved hands. Beneath the layers, his fingers struck something solid. Not wood, not stone, metal. He dug deeper, prying at the object until it came loose with a sucking sound. In the dim light filtering through the canopy, Jasper held it up. It was a pan, or what had once been one. Rust covered its surface, jagged edges eaten away by time and moisture. At first glance, it seemed like discarded camping gear, abandoned years ago. But as he turned it over in his hands, something stopped him cold. The surface was punctured, not once but multiple times. Tight clusters of small, round holes. The edges raised inward, as if punched by force. He knew instantly what he was looking at. Buckshot. A shotgun blast at close range. This wasn't lost gear. This was evidence of violence. The dog wasn't finished. Kept pawing at the same spot, whining as if urging Jasper to continue. Uneasy now, Jasper knelt again and dug deeper into the cavity beneath the log. The soil was damp and cold. His hands brushed against something tangled. He pulled. What came free was fabric. Molded, decayed, but still identifiable as part of a backpack strap. Plastic buckles dangled, brittle with age. The smell of rot clung to it. He dug again. More fragments emerged. Shreds of nylon, pieces of degraded clothing, straps, and buckles. One piece stood out, the faint, waterlogged green of an olive rain jacket. The color sent a shiver down his spine. The memory came rushing back. 2 years ago, the story of the mother and son who had vanished. The details repeated in every newspaper. Rhonda's olive green jacket. Trevor's turquoise one. The truck, smashed at the trailhead. The for-second call no one could explain. Jasper's hands trembled as he set the items aside. This wasn't random. This was connected. The buckshot pan, the buried gear, the jacket. This was the Carings. Jasper's instincts told him to keep digging, to unearth everything. But years of experience reminded him of something else. This wasn't just discarded gear. It was a potential crime scene. Disturbing it further could destroy evidence. So he stopped. He placed the rusted pan and the fragments of gear back near the opening, exactly as he had found them. He took photographs with his phone, hands shaking. Then he pulled out his GPS unit and recorded the coordinates with meticulous care. The silence of the forest pressed in around him, heavier than before. What he had found wasn't just lost equipment. It was a grave. And what came next would only deepen the mystery. Before we continue, make sure you're subscribed to our channel, so you never miss stories like this one. Stories where the line between wilderness and violence is thinner than you think. The hike back was brutal. Every sound, snapping branches, wind rustling leaves, felt amplified, sinister. Jasper's dog stayed close, as if sensing its master's unease. By the time he reached his truck, dusk had fallen. He drove straight into town, straight to the nearest state police office. He placed the pan on the desk. The photographs, the GPS coordinates. This isn't just old gear, he said. You need to see this. The officer on duty, skeptical at first, fell silent as soon as he saw the bullet holes. Within days, the site was secured. Helicopters ferried crime scene technicians into the wilderness. The location was so remote they had to hike with specialized packs of equipment for hours after landing. When they arrived, the scene was exactly as Jasper had described. The disturbed soil, the moss-covered log, the pan, the straps, the jacket remnants. They set up a perimeter, grid the area, began a careful excavation. Soil was removed layer by layer. Each fragment was photographed, bagged, and logged. Buttons, buckles, nylon straps, decayed fragments of fabric. It wasn't much, but it was enough. Back in the lab, analysts worked meticulously. The olive jacket was compared to records Gareth had provided in 2014. Same make, same brand, same model. It was Rhonda's. The backpack straps matched Trevor's gear. And the pan? Ballistics confirmed Jasper's suspicion. The perforations were caused by buckshot fired at close range. The pattern was unmistakable, a shotgun blast, likely aimed directly at the pan as it shielded something or someone. This wasn't an accident. It was violence. When detectives knocked on his door, Gareth's hands shook before he even opened it. He sat at the table as they laid out photographs of what Jasper had found. The pan, the jacket, the straps. For the first time in 2 years, there was proof. Proof that his wife and son hadn't simply gotten lost. Proof that his instincts had been right all along. The 217 call hadn't been an accident. It had been a desperate attempt to reach him. And somewhere in those woods, someone had silenced them. The items unearthed beneath that moss-covered log were transported under tight security to the state crime lab. Each fragment was handled with gloves, sealed in sterile bags, and logged under the official case number that had lain dormant for 2 years. Technicians worked carefully, knowing the forest had already destroyed much. The soil was damp, the fabrics degraded, the metal corroded. Every item was fragile, ready to crumble at the slightest touch. Yet, even in their ruined state, the items spoke. The olive green jacket matched Gareth's description exactly. The backpack straps matched Trevor's model. And the pan, pitted, perforated, rusted nearly beyond recognition, still told the clearest story of all. Ballistic experts lined up the cluster of holes, measured the spread, and tested buckshot of similar gauge. The conclusion was unanimous. A close-range shotgun blast. It was violence, deliberate and unmistakable. The discovery reignited the investigation. Detectives, some of whom had long since moved on to other cases, were pulled back. Rangers returned to the Adirondacks, this time not as searchers but as escorts for forensic teams. The site was combed again inch by inch. Soil was sifted. Every square of the grid was excavated. But the forest had claimed too much. No remains surfaced. No weapon. No further personal items beyond what Jasper had disturbed. It was as if the earth itself had decided what fragments to surrender, and what secrets to keep. The evidence confirmed what Gareth had always feared. Rhonda and Trevor had not vanished by chance. They had been killed. But by whom? Why? And where were their bodies? The questions only deepened. If it was a random attack, why hide the pan and gear in such a remote, deliberate way? If it was a robbery, why leave valuables untouched? If it was personal, why were there no enemies, no grudges, no signs of a planned ambush? And the blood in the truck window, the male DNA profile that still sat unmatched in Cody's, returned to the forefront. Investigators compared it again, but the same answer echoed back. No match. Whoever left that blood behind had never been caught for anything else. When detectives sat with Gareth and explained the findings, he listened in silence. The photographs lay spread across the table. The rusted pan, the shredded jacket, the brittle straps. Tears blurred his vision, but beneath them was a quiet fire. "I told you," he whispered. "That call. It wasn't a mistake. It was them, trying to reach me." The room was heavy with the weight of 2 years wasted, of searches dismissed, of a father's instinct ignored. For Gareth, there was no relief in vindication. Only sorrow that the proof had come too late. In late 2016, the New York State Police held a press conference. A spokesperson confirmed that evidence linked to the Caring disappearance had been recovered. They acknowledged signs of foul play, specifically the ballistics consistent with a shotgun blast. But when pressed, they admitted the hardest truth. No suspects, no bodies, no definitive cause of death beyond suspicious circumstances. The case, while reopened, remained unsolved. Reporters pushed for answers. Families of other missing hikers called in with theories. Conspiracy forums lit up, dissecting every detail. But in the end, the official statement was as empty as the forest. We continue to investigate. Winter returned, covering the Adirondacks in snow. The site beneath the moss-covered log froze over, sealed beneath ice. Whatever else lay buried there would wait for spring, or another decade, or forever. Hikers passed nearby without knowing. Coyotes returned to the ridges. Life in the wilderness resumed its rhythm, indifferent to human loss. The forest does not care who disappears inside it. For Gareth, there was no closure. His wife and son were still gone, their remains unfound, their voices silenced except for 4 seconds on a satellite call. He lived with that number engraved in his mind. 2:17 a.m., 4 seconds. He would never know what those seconds contained. A breath? A cry? A plea? The pan told one story of violence, of a shotgun fired in rage or fear. But the call told another. A desperate attempt to reach him, cut short by forces he would never see. In the Adirondacks, hikers still tell the story around campfires. A mother and son, experienced and strong, vanished without a trace. A truck smashed and bloody. A call at 2:17 in the morning. And 2 years later, a hunter's dog scratching at the earth until the forest gave up a clue. A rusted pan riddled with shotgun blasts. Theories multiply. Suspects remain nameless. The truth stays buried. And the forest, vast and ancient, keeps its silence. If you want to follow more mysteries like this one, stories where the silence of the woods hides answers we may never find, make sure you're subscribed and turn on notifications so you never miss the next story. Because some mysteries are never solved. They are only whispered,